Welcome to The Turnover. The format is simple. Take 3 multifamily media network hosts with a maintenance background and put them together. The twist is that, like maintenance in the apartment industry, they have to respond to the unknown. You see, 2 of the hosts don't know what the topic is. The fun part is there's no limit and you get to listen in. So what ideas are we turning today?
So I think because of the new year, I would like to find out from you guys what trend or viewpoint on a trend you're going to be tracking. And this actually comes from a conversation, Chris, that you and I had, and I think, Mark, you were there maybe, at this year's AOD on centralization. Oh. And yeah, I know that's a loaded word, especially in multifamily. But actually, my curiosity and what I'm going to be curious about regarding centralization is how can we centralize maintenance operations and still maintain an individual property's branding or standards.
Yeah, you can't.
Because my fear is if we have, the big concept as I understand it right now is the goal of centralization is to decrease headcount in maintenance. And by decreasing headcount, you free up salary so that we can begin paying experts, to where instead of having, to your point earlier, instead of having maintenance technicians that are generalists, they know how to throw 1,000 punches. We have specialists that only work on one punch. And the application there is you have 2 or 3 HVAC guys, 2 or 3 plumbing guys and gals, 3 or 4 electrician guys and gals, and they go from property to property based on dispatching. From one community might be a high rise, the next community might be garden style, a third might be affordable, a fourth might be mid rise. And my question on what I'm going to be interested to see is how can property A maintain their A rating and property B maintain their C rating or D rating. I want to see how that works or how that functions. So that's what my curiosity is.
So I'm gonna go off. It's gonna sound like I'm going off topic, but I'm not. Okay. Many of us at one point in our lives, and maybe currently, have cable. And what does cable provide us? It provides us with numerous television channels for whatever we want, whether we're a movie buff, we're a documentary buff, whether we're a history buff, whether we're a TV buff, a sports buff, right? Cable was everything. You pay one, and many of us still have it. I don't, and I'm getting there. You pay one price a month to the cable company, and they deliver all of the content to you. You get everything. Then, a few years ago, there was a real push to cut the cord. Let's fight back against the system. Let's fight back about the evil cable companies that are, monopolizing, and you're not getting enough creativity and you're not getting enough content. And I don't like sports. So why am I paying somebody when I don't watch sports? Which I don't. Okay. My wife is very happy that I am not a, armchair warrior on Saturdays and Sundays watching college and NFL football in season. But regardless, so there was a big push for streaming. Oh, a la carte. If I just want to watch programs from this one network, I'm going to pay this one network $8 a month, as opposed to the evil cable company, $80 a month. Now I know, prices are all different, but let's just go with this example, right? But then I decided, oh, but there's another streaming company that I like their stuff too. And they have some really great shows, so I'm going to go to them too. So now I have two a la cartes. Oh, this is great. A la carte dinners are fantastic, aren't they, guys? When you can just kind of pick whatever you want. Until you have eaten everything you're eating everything on the menu. I now pay more, and many of us do, getting the exact same content by I have 9, my wife and I were talking about it last night, 9 different streaming options where there's overlap. I'm getting to the point. I swear I'm getting to a point.
I'm with you.
Okay?
I'm on board. I'm with you.
So I am now paying more when I could have just gone with old standby cable, where I could have gotten everything. I had a DVR. I was able to record things. I was able to get things on demand. Yeah, there were downsides of cable and there's downsides of streaming. But the downside of streaming for me, and let's focus on this, is the cost. 4 years since I've cut the cord, 5 years since I've cut the cord, I'm now paying 50% more than what I was paying before. So I'm paying 1.5x of what I was previously paying for cable. And yes, prices have gone up in those 5 years, but I am paying more. Let's go back to maintenance. Let's go back to our industry. Our current maintenance teams are cable. They can do a lot of different things. They might not be great. They might not be the best plumbers. They might not be the best painters, but they do it. That is their job and that is their expectation. Our maintenance teams are cable. We are going through right now and really due to, Paul, I disagree with you about saving money, and I want to get back. We're going to get back to that. We're going to centralization or specialization, whatever you want to call it, out of the need because there's not enough maintenance team members, right? That's my position. Yes, a position can be made that organizations are trying to save money, but to go to my example, we're cutting the cord on our existing maintenance technicians and we're going to streaming maintenance technicians that, oh, this one's really good at sports. Oh, his sport is HVAC. This one's really good at documentaries. That's my plumber. This one's really good at movies. He's my make-ready technician. We are going to end up spending more as an industry when we could just be paying our existing cable company a little bit more for a little bit better content, pay our existing team members a little bit more, provide them with a little bit more training. And that's how I see it, and that's where I see that is going to happen, is that, we're going to cut the cord on the old model of a maintenance technician on site, and we're going to get specialization and centralization. It's going to be great. Our costs are going to increase. And they are not going to increase a little bit. They're going to increase exponentially. That's my soapbox.
Following your cable analogy, and I didn't mean for this to go on to centralization, but we're here.
Here we are.
Following your cable analogy, for you and your wife, you're now paying 1.5x. Not only that, what is your current administrative burden? In other words, if you decide you're going to cut it back off, if before you were paying, just for round numbers, $100 for your cable service, your general do everything, whether you watch it or not service.
Yep.
If you decide you want to go back down to that, the administrative burden for you to cancel any one of those will now eclipse any administrative burden ever that you had with cable, just to try and disconnect from any of the individual providers. And I agree with you. I think it's going to, in the long run, which, in my opinion, our industry is not built for the long run at the property level.
Oh, we just build and manage buildings that are literally supposed to live in perpetuity, but we don't plan for perpetuity, do we?
No.
Nobody ever builds a building that goes, oh, we're just going to have this apartment building here for 5 years. We just got to worry about it for 5 years. No, it's 50. It's 80. It's 100.
Yeah. Don't go talk to the framing crew while it's being built. Okay, Mark, what are your thoughts on centralization since we're there?
I mean, having designed and implemented a centralized maintenance program, this really hits home, and so many flaws. So just from the practical application of it, and not having anything to go off of, because there aren't many if any, successful centralized programs in our market that I could use as a beta, a test, hey, there was a company out in Arizona that had a similar makeup, but they were very small, and it worked for them. And I did spend some time with their regional, kind of learning some bits and pieces about what they do. But when I put it into place for the company, 1,500 units. Those units were split up into 3 regions. So region 1, region 2, region 3. So roughly 500 in each region. Well, those 500 units were not one property. It was whatever was just assigned to that region. So the footprint of that region could span 50 miles. And it could include up to 7 or 8 different apartment communities. So for us, for that program, the challenge was we're gonna create a pod. We're gonna do a pod of maintenance guys, and we're gonna assign this pod to region 1, this pod to region 2, this pod to region 3. Well, one of those regions spanned 50 miles, and their properties were a certain caliber, I guess we'll say. But then another pod had only 2 properties that were right next door to each other, and they didn't have to travel as far. So it came into we started managing. We went from creating something that we thought was really cool that would help us save some money and pay people better. But one, I'm a teacher. I want to teach. I want to hire somebody who knows nothing, and I want to invest in them, and I want to teach them. I can't do that with this because we're not hiring green people. We're not helping solve the problem of no labor in our workforce by centralizing. You're not. And what we found, and this is, this isn't the end all here, but what I found was that when you do this, when we did this, say when anybody, but when I did this, and we started to assign specific things to specific people, it really empowered those individuals to, in my opinion, it empowered them negatively, because now, I'm your pro at this. Okay. I'm the guy that you're going to call every time you need this done. Okay. I'm going to start.
Interesting.
I'm going to start being more picky about what I do, when I do it. And I'm even going to push back and say, okay, well, if I'm the guy that you've got doing this, I'm going to need a little bit more money because I'm your professional. I am your end all. I am your, and again, I probably a load of things I did wrong. Okay. This is not that I had it figured out, but
Mark, I don't think you did anything wrong. I think that is an inherently human nature. You've identified me as a pro, an expert, your go-to, right? I experience it with leaders. I experience it with managers that I work with, right? I'm your go-to. Pay me. or I'm going to go somewhere where they appreciate me more, or I'm going to go somewhere where they will pay me. But I never really thought about the whole centralization argument, that it gives I don't want to say false sense of empowerment, because I think it does give a true positive sense of empowerment, but it could go the wrong way. I never thought about it like that. And all these discussions I've had about it and arguments about it, I never thought about that. It could create a false narrative, a sense of empowerment that might go the wrong way.
Yeah. I mean, and that's just my experience from it. There were a lot of good things that came out of it, but to one of the questions that you had asked, and Paul, I know I see you're like ready to say something.
Well, it's my brain's running,
but
it hurts.
But one of your questions, Chris, was how do you maintain the standard of the Class A, the Class B, the affordable, the whatever by centralizing? And the way we set it up with the certain pods, and this group handling region 1, this group handling 2, this group handling region 3, we've had multiple situations where region 1 would get down to 4 or 5 work orders, where region 2 would be sitting at 85 or 86 work orders, and region 1's over there like,
right,
I'm in my region, and it's like, well, region 2's like, hey, I need some help. But for the metrics, for the KPIs that we're trying to monitor, for the this and for the that, we can't send help because we need to know what's going on. We need the data before we can and so then you're sacrificing your resident experience. You're like, this is horrible. I can't believe I'm saying all this out loud, but it's a test. Like you gotta figure out what's broken so that you can learn to fix it. But unfortunately, it is at the cost of the resident experience.
Well, and three things come to mind. The first is, I think what you just, three. Three things come to mind. The first, I think you've just identified that centralization will be very hard, very challenging to do in a third-party situation, to where you're dealing with third-party owners. Due to, Chris, you're the cable company analogy.
It's impossible.
Perfect for that. Yeah,
It's impossible to do it in a fee-managed environment.
Yeah. The second thing is, I've seen centralization work on a military base years ago. I did it. I know.
That's different though. I'll let you finish your thought and then I'll argue with you.
It is. It's different without being new. Ha!
No callbacks to other episodes. No callbacks to other episodes.
But this was out in Hawaii when I was years ago as a supplier, went out there to do training on locks, and it worked out there because you had a clearly defined standard for those different communities. And by clearly defined, on the military base out there in Hawaii on the island, they had their maintenance team was working in homes. Then they had it separated at the time. This was years ago. I don't know if it's still there. They had it separated by officers' homes, and then you had enlisted families' homes, and then you had multifamily, like regular standard apartments, and then you had single, or what they referred to at that time as bachelor quarters, and then they had barracks. And each one of those, the technicians that had to go do a work order at the officers' quarters, they had a very clearly defined scope of work of what their finished product or what their standard was going to be, and each and every segment was there. And to your point, Chris, it's not centralization in that you still have one overriding organization that is heavily controlled in an environment.
It's specialization.
Yeah, it's
which is very different. Centralization and specialization, I think for the sakes of this argument, are two very different things. You're talking about your military base example, and my organization manages military bases. I've been on several on-base housings. That's specialization, right? It's one community. Yes, there may be different product in that larger military base community. There may be mid-rises, there may be barracks, there may be homes, but it's still one community. It's still one team, but you have specialized people.
The same sort of thing for a management company. If in this analogy, if we take military and pull out military, whichever branch of the service, thank everybody for serving, God bless you all. But if we take out whatever branch of the service and insert management company, then you have the same situation that was going on in the entire island. You've got the different product, different properties. You've got the different buildings, barracks, single family, multifamily. I think what's missing out of that piece of it is the specialized standards that don't change.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's be real. On our current properties, if we're not hitting economic occupancy for one quarter, the next quarter's budget gets changed. And because that budget gets changed, your standards adjust. In the military place, no, you didn't change anything unless the base general head, whatever it was, said, no, this will change.
But again, when you're looking at military, you're looking at a insular community. Yeah. Yes, different product, right? But Mark, you said it best. You have a region where it could be 50-mile drive time between one side to the other. That's why I firmly believe centralization, which is different than specialization, they go hand in hand, but it is different, right?
Yeah.
I think we can agree, and it's probably a topic for another time for us to talk, is specialization versus centralization. But it will not work in a fee-managed environment because you have too many, nobody wants to share their team members. It's a billing nightmare. It's an administrative burden. Mark, you and I have talked about this in the past because we both kind of work in the affordable world. You work for an owner-operator. I work for a fee manager / owner-operator. And the thing, there are organizations that it can work for. There are owners and operators and developers that centralization can work for, but under very, very specific guidelines. Geographically, they need to be in the same place. I work with tons of developers. Yeah, they all like to buy properties in the same, 60-mile radius. No, they don't. They buy properties where it is where they're going to make the most money. And they don't care if it's 4 states away. They don't care if it's 3 time zones away. They don't care, how big it is, how small it is, whatever the best deal is. So you have that piece.
Yeah. They need to. Good piece.
Some companies that, somebody I've talked to on my show before that works for the Lloyd companies in South Dakota. That is an owner-operator developer that geographically they're able to do it because they only buy in a certain geographical area and they're able to centralize their team. But when you start looking at larger companies or larger developers that are in multiple states, great, it might work in upstate New York, but they only have one property in North Carolina. So now you have 2 different systems within an organization. That's 2 different sets of policies and procedures, going back to your administrative burden. Why is this region doing better than that one? Well, because they have, an administrator, or a maintenance coordinator, if you will, that's overseeing where all of the pieces are on the chessboard.
Yeah.
Too many variables for it to work for everybody.
Oh, heck. And I think with the technology that is coming online, that administrative piece will get better. We're not there yet. I think it's like 2026 to get there. But the third topic, or the third thing that came to mind as you were talking, was I've been on the opposite side of it, where I went the largest CAMT class I ever taught at one time. We had 110 people in a room. It was two people, myself and David Jolly, were in, it was for a housing authority, and I can't remember the state, God bless it. But 110 maintenance technicians. And the whole reason they brought us in to teach CAMT was in an organized pathway to teach those, the fundamental skills of being a maintenance technician to everybody all at once. And we had in the room of those 110 technicians, this group over here was painters. This group over here was electrician. This group over here was the plumbers. This group over here was HVAC. These were the groundskeepers. These were it. And the amount of fight that as an instructor, you all know, you stand up in front of a room and you introduce a topic. We're going to talk about charging refrigerant. And the HVAC guys and gals, they sit up in their seat and they're like, yes, this is my topic. I'm going to learn something. I am here. And everybody else, you get the eye roll that you can audibly hear from the stage.
Yeah.
Really? And every day, the president of that housing authority had to come up to the front of the room and say, this is happening. And if you don't like it, too bad. This is happening. Call. And that was fun. It was great. But to your point, Mark, that was it, was that, hey, wait a second. I was the painter. I did painting. I did the drywall. I did all of those repairs. You are now making me less special. And they didn't change money. They didn't change, they did change titles to where they went from painter, chief, or engineer, whatever it was their title was, to the standardized Tech 1, Tech 2, Tech 3, and based it on level of responsibility. And I never heard back how it went, but to your point, the level of frustration from deprogramming from a centralization model to a generalized specialist model. Yeah. And there they dealt with, granted, it was a housing authority, and they were dealing with mid-rise, high-rise, I think their newest building was like 5 years old. So that was, at that time, was new to 50 or 60-year-old product.
Yeah. And a lot of, Paul, I've known you a long time and I've never heard that story. And that is ripe for, Mark and I are dumbfounded right now. I can't imagine. Oh, and I deal with housing authorities. So that reinforces my point. It works for housing authorities. It has worked for housing. It works on varying degrees. I have worked with and around NYCHA, New York City Housing Authority, for, years. But it's all geographic, right? It is housing authorities. It's by nature are geographically within a city limit, within or a county limit, right? So geographically, they check that box. That's how they make it work. Then you have the government oversight, where they have 16 people to do one person's job on a back office side, which we don't necessarily have in our industry. So that, yes, it does work when it's subsidized by the federal government through your taxes. But I don't know if it works when the rent's paying the bills.
I actually think that what we're talking about here is the two part, situation normal, centralization. The two part is where we are. How do we get from situation normal to centralization? It's that two part that we're figuring out.
Yeah. For us, back to that old, one maintenance technician per 100 apartments. You know, that old industry standard that is gone and used way too often. But when you think about a community or a company with 1,500 units, you look at it and you say, okay, I need 15 maintenance in order to do this properly. Assuming that 1,500 is one property, right? You have one property with 1,500 people. You might not need 15, right? You've got your various positions. You might have an actual physical maintenance workforce of 10. I'm just throwing something out there. If it's on one property. But when you take that 1,500 and you split it up amongst 3 counties, and you know, each pod had 3 people. So 1,500 units with 9 people. And these properties are affordable. There weren't enough people. And you're putting your money, or you're putting your like, oh, we've got this specialist in HVAC. That's great. But that's all that person can do.
Yeah. Yeah, and the big, to kind of summarize it there, I don't think we've solved the centralization, which is there. Matter of fact, I think if anything, I am less happy about going that route now, and I already was not a fan of it in the first place. At the same time, Chris, that labor piece of it, which I think is, you know, my statement that we're trying to solve the labor crisis or the labor challenge by going centralizing and save, with the end result of saving money. I don't think the saving money piece is involved there. I agree with you. It's a labor crisis. And Mark, to your point, I don't think centralization without some heavy thinking is an environment where you can develop somebody without some barriers or guardrails put in. And those barriers and guardrails and standards will cost money to set up. And I don't know if right now, our tolerance as an industry to spend that money with little to no return in the same financial year, I don't know if there's a tolerance there for it. I really don't.
Yeah, and I think you know, Paul, I want to wrap it by simply saying that, you know, buzzwords are great. Buzzwords are great, and centralization is a buzzword that's flying around. But and just like cutting the cord, to go back to my original topic, cutting the cord was a buzzword. You won't hear cutting the cord anymore, right? Everybody's just streaming. You either have cable or you're streaming. The buzzword 5 years ago was cut the cord, and a lot of us did, and we're paying for it. And right now, the buzzword in our industry is centralization, and we're not paying for it yet, but we will. And that's all I wanted to, you know, wrap on that topic.
Yeah. Now it's your opportunity to respond and let us know what we missed. If there's any topics of conversation you'd like us to turn over, head over to multifamilymedianetwork.com and leave us a message.